Good morning and namaste to all of you. Let's do some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto ma sadgamya, tamso ma jyotirgamya, mrityurma amritam gamya. Om Sena Bhavatu, Sena Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karvavahi, Tejasvi Navadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. Okay, let's open our Uddhava Gita books. We are on page number 729. And this is chapter 23, which is the last chapter. And we are going to finish this today. So I'm very thankful to all of you that you accompany me in the reading of these books and understanding these books, the messages of our great rishis and avatars. So in verse number 34, Lord Krishna, so in this particular section of Bhagavad Puran, because this Uddhava Gita is part of Bhagavad Puran. So these are the last words spoken by Lord Krishna. Let's read them again. What did he say? He says, one who gives up all fruitive activities and surrenders unto me, sincerely desiring to render service unto me, achieves liberation from birth and death, and while residing in my supreme abode, shares my opulence. I mean, look at it. What kind of a promise he is giving it to us? All we have to do, surrender. It's almost like a drop of water surrenders to the ocean, becomes the ocean. The same way when we surrender, and what are we surrendering? We are surrendering our ego. That little I, when it surrenders, it becomes the big I. I am Brahm. Aham Brahmasmi. So very clearly, very in simple terms, he is telling us what to do. And these are the last words of Lord Krishna in this Uddhava Gita. And we all know that Uddhava Gita, these are the like a words, not just to Uddhava, but he said, Uddhava, go spread it. Give it to the other Rishi Munis. See, that is the greatness of the Sanatan Dharma. We are not supposed to just keep it to ourselves. We are supposed to spread it. All the Rishi Munis in the Upanishads also, after teaching those young Kumars, the last message was, go out and spread. When we spread, we get many-fold back also. This is what happens. So in Uddhava Gita, we have seen that Lord Krishna again and again explains the spirituality, the religion, the code of conduct for various classes of society, stages of life, and supremacy of devotion. That's why in this last chapter, he's talking about bhakti. He talked about different paths to enlightenment also. And he talks about that mind is the root cause of all miseries. So a lot of messages he has given it to us in this scripture. Again and again. So let's look at it now. Shukdev ji, what is he saying? And Shukdev ji is talking to whom? Remember, Arjun's grandson, Parikshit. Okay, it's a conversation between a conversation. So verse number 35 and 36, it is Shukdev ji saying, and Shukdev ji is who? Rishi Vyasa's son. He's not just an ordinary human being. These are the Devatas, these are the enlightened people, come back again and again to show us the path. So he says, Sa evam darshit yog margas tad uttamaha shalokaha vacho nishyam badhaschali pritye upruddh kanto na kinchit uche shupari plutakshaha. Shukdev Goswami said, having been instructed by Lord Shri Krishna about the complete path of yoga, Uddhava, his voice choked due to ecstatic love and his eyes filled with tears. See, those are the symptoms of a bhakti. We know that. Folded his hands and stood silently, unable to say anything. See, voice becomes choked when you are filled with the love for God. So can't say anything, eyes are full of tears. And sometimes the body trembles also. So that's how he is Uddhava. Then in the next verse 36, he says, Vishitbhe chittam pananyavadhunam dhairyam rajan bahumanyam kritanjali praha yadu praviram shirshan saprisham tach charnar vindam. O king, with great patience. So, O king is for Parikshit because Shukdev is talking. So he's saying that, O king, with great patience, Uddhava pacified his mind, which was agitated by ecstatic love. Feeling most grateful to Lord Krishna, the greatest hero of the Yadu dynasty, he bowed down to touch the lotus feet of the Lord with his head and then spoke with the folded hands. Kritanjali. Okay, so when we put hands together and bow down, that's what he's doing. Due to fear of impending separation, Uddhav felt very anxious because Uddhav knew that Lord Krishna is leaving now. This is a departing message. But just to steady his mind, he remembered how Shri Krishna had bestowed great mercy upon him. You can almost imagine both of them standing next to each other, and what is the state of mind for Uddhava. Now, what did Uddhav say? Verse number 37. Vidavitoho moho maha andhkaro ya ashrito metab sanidhanat vibhavasoho kimnu samipgasya shitam tamo bhi parvante ajadhye. Shri Uddhav said, O primeval Lord, I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but by your merciful association, my delusion is now dispelled. For one who stands in the sunlight, how can cold, darkness, or fear continue to oppress him? So he is saying that you are like a sun to me, who gives the warmth and the radiance and the light. Shri Uddhav said, I had fallen into the darkness of illusion. Although I am surrounded by the Yadavs, headed by Shri Krishna, I considered Dwarka to be a limited and temporary material place. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Shri Krishna revealed the confidential conclusions of transcendental knowledge to to Uddhav, which were unknown to others. But he withheld the most confidential part, which he has now imparted to him. Just as by the rising of the sun, darkness is automatically vanquished, so when one takes to the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, the darkness of ignorance cannot remain. The processes of karma, jnana, and yoga are incapable of entirely removing the darkness of ignorance. So, in other words, whether we are on a path of karma yoga or we think that we are doing our duties properly, or we are learning something, or yoga over here really means the hatha yoga, we are taking care of this body, considering it a temple, but ultimately we got to remember the love for God, the devotion is going to take us to that place. Okay? So, bhakti is really the rasa. Verse number 38. Pratyab arpito me bhavatanukampinaha भूताय विज्ञान में अप्रदीप हित्वहा कृत ज्ञस्त तव पाद मूलम को अन्यम समयान शरणम तव दीयम. As reciprocation for my surrender at your lotus feet, you have mercifully illuminated me with the transcendental knowledge. What devotee of yours who has any gratitude at all could give up the shelter of your lotus feet and accept another master? Uddhav said, I have surrendered my body, soul, mind, intelligence, and senses unto you, and in return you have enlightened me with the knowledge that removes all darkness of ignorance. My dear Lord, I am fully satisfied at every moment by the realization of your unfathomable glories. Now you may do whatever you wish to your surrendered servant. So he says, I'm yours, so do whatever you want to do with me. You may keep me here or send me wherever you desire. I am ever grateful to you, and I simply wish to remain your eternal servant. I have no personal desire to go anywhere, even a holy place of pilgrimage, leaving aside your lotus feet. I am happy to reside anywhere as long as I'm fully absorbed in your devotional service. Whatever you wish me to do, I will carry out your order. This is the purpose of this verse. When one takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, all of the darkness born of ignorance is dispelled so that one becomes free from all doubts. Such a devotee accepts the lotus feet of the Lord as his only refuge. Verse number 39. विघ्नश्च में सुदृढ़ा स्नेह पाशो दाशर्हे वृष्णे अंधक सात्वतेषु प्रसारिता सृष्टि विवृद्धेतव्या स्वमाया ही आत्म सुबोध हेतिना. With a desire to increase the population, you extended the rope of my affection towards the Dashras, Andhakas, Vrishnis, and Yadavs. But today, you have cut that rope with the weapon of transcendental knowledge. Uddhav might wonder, how can I sever my affection for the Yadavs and go elsewhere? Because he was a Yadav. Yadav is that dynasty or a clan, you can call it Yadavs. He would answer that as follows, I am tied to the Yadavs with the rope of affection. My dear Lord, you expanded your family, the Yadavs, and have thus increased the population by means of your own potency. Your family is still expanding through the agency of your sons and grandsons. Thus, my social prestige has also spread in all directions. You should now cut off the rope of my family affection and prestige with the weapon of transcendental knowledge. Let me instead be tied by the rope of affection to those who relish hearing and chanting your transcendental names, as well as descriptions of your transcendental forms, qualities, and pastimes. Let that affection remain as my ornament. I wish to remain in your association and that of the Yadavs forever. This is my prayer. So he says, I want to be with your devotees, because first we are attached to our family members, our kids and kids, but then eventually we want to be in the company of the devotees when we are on the path of bhakti. That's what he's saying. Verse number 40. Namostu te mahayogin prapanna anushadhi mam yathatvach charnambhoje rati siyad anupayane. O greatest of mystic yogis, I offer my obeisance unto you. Please instruct me, who am surrendered unto you, so that I may have unflinching attachment for your lotus feet. So he says, that's the only attachment I want to have, attachment to your lotus feet. Uddhav said, O greatest of all mystics, you have so graciously allowed me to realize your transcendental nature and characteristics, and thus have awarded me complete satisfaction. Now there's a group of 4 verses together, 41 to 44. So this is Lord Krishna again saying a few words more. Gacho Uddhava Mahadishtoho Vardeha Akhyam Mam Ashramam Tatra Mam Pad Tirthode Sanano Suparsh Neshuchi Ikshayalakan Nandaya Vidhut Kshish Kalmsha Vasano Valkalnaye Ang Vanye Bhuk Sukh Nispraha Titikshur Dvand मात्र नाम सुशीलः संयत इंद्रिया शांतः समाहित धिया ज्ञान विज्ञान संयुक्तः मतोनुशिक्षितं यत ते विविक्तम अनुभाव्यन मयि आवेशित वाक्चित मदधर्म निरतो भव अतिव्रज्ये गतिस तिस्रहो माम एष्यसि तथा परम. So these are from 41 to 44. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Uddhava, follow my order and go to Badrika Ashram. Purify yourself by bathing and performing Achman with the water that has emanated from my lotus feet. Free yourself of all sinful reactions by having darshan of the sacred Alaknanda river. Dress yourself to tree bark and eat the fruit and roots that are easily available in the forest. Thus, you should remain self-satisfied and free of all desires, tolerant of all dualities, good-natured, self-controlled, peaceful, and endowed with transcendental knowledge and realization. With fixed attention, constantly contemplate these instructions that I have imparted to you and thus assimilate their essence. Fix your mind and words upon me, and in this way you will be able to surpass the influence of the 3 modes of material nature and finally come back to me. So he is giving these instructions, final instructions to Uddhava, sending him to Badrika Ashram. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Uddhava, you are as good as me, and thus among all members of the Yadu dynasty, you are my personal representative. I had previously declared Uddhav is not inferior to me in any way. Therefore, you should remain in this world just to preach my instructions. Distribute this transcendental knowledge to everyone. Whatever I wish to accomplish in this world can be done by you. As I had previously sent you to Vraj, I will now send you to Badrika Ashram. You remember? Lord Krishna sent Uddhav to Vraj also, to the gopis. There, the foremost of sages, Shri Narayan, as well as others, aspire to see me. Previously, I traveled to Mithila and many other places on this earth and satisfied all my devotees who desired to see me by giving them my darshan and imparting to them transcendental knowledge. Now, however, I'm unable to go to Badrika Ashram. I am now 125 years old. See, that's how human years he lived, 125. And the time for my disappearance has arrived. You said to me, I am your surrendered servant, and so kindly order me, what should I do? So this is my order. Your name, Uddhav, is suitable because you give pleasure to everyone. Now go to Badrika Ashram and give everyone joy by displaying your knowledge, renunciation, and other sublime characteristics. This is my mission. Indeed, simply by your glance, you will nullify all the sinful reactions that have become stocked in the river Alkananda. After you execute my order, you will return to me in the spiritual sky. Instead of working under the direction of the three modes of material nature, if one works under the direction of the spiritual master in devotional service, which is transcendental to the material modes, he certainly becomes qualified to attain the ultimate destination. Others cannot go back to Godhead because they try to attain insignificant and temporary material objects. So we got to see in our own mind, what do we want? Do we want God or do we want this Prakriti from God? These objects are the Prakriti. Okay, so this has to be clear to us when we are on the path of bhakti also. What do we really want? And wants are in our mind. So that's why it's always good to know what is in our mind. Instead of thinking what is in other people's mind, what is in our mind? Now Shukdev is saying, verse number 45, Sa eva mukto hari medso udvaha pradakshinam tam pari sritye padyo shiro nidhai ashru kalbir ardhra dhi nyashi shut advandvam paro api apkrame. Shukdev Goswami said, after being thus instructed by the supremely intelligent Lord Shri Krishna, Uddhav circumambulated him and then bowed down to offer his obeisance. Circumambulate is parikrama, when we go around. Placing his head upon the lotus feet of the Lord. Although Uddhav was free from the influence of all material dualities, he became afflicted by feelings of separation, so that he drenched the Lord's lotus feet with his tears. So, Ashru. Sukhdev Goswami said, after receiving instructions from Shri Krishna, Uddhav, whose heart was always filled with ecstatic love for the Lord, felt great lamentation due to impending separation and thus shed incessant tears. So even though he know that God is everywhere, God is with me, but still this is like a personal relationship at the bodily level also. He was enjoying, and now he was being separated. So that's why the tears kept flowing from his eyes. Verse number 46. Su dusatye snehe viyog katro na shukra vansatam parihatum atruja kuchra yayo murdha nibhritrihi paduke vibhavan namaskritye yayo punah punah. Punah punah. Punah means again, again. We saw those words in Bhagavad Gita also. Punah punah. Greatly fearing separation from the Lord, for whom he felt such great affection, Uddhava was distraught, so that he could not give up the Lord's association. Finally, feeling great agony, he repeatedly bowed down to the Lord, placed his wooden shoes upon his head, and departed. Okay, Paduka. See, the same thing Bharat did, brought the Paduka of his brother Ram back to Ayodhya. The Lord mercifully extended his lotus feet to Uddhava, who clasped them with great love and devotion and placed them on his head. Thereafter, Uddhava left for Badrika Ashram in order to carry out the mission of the Supreme Lord. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam that while Uddhava was going to Badrika Ashram, he heard that the Lord had traveled to Parhas. Uddhav then retraced his steps so that he could find Lord Krishna, and it so happened that he came to where the Lord was sitting alone after the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. Uddhav was once again instructed by the Lord, and after his transcendental understanding was reawakened on the order of the Lord, he again departed for Badrika Ashram. Verse number 47. ततस्तं अंतर्हृदि स निवेश्ये गतो महाभागवतो विशालाम यथोपदिष्ठाम जगत एक बंधुना तपा समास्थाय हरेर अगाध गतिम. Thereafter, the exalted devotee Uddhav placed Shri Krishna upon the lotus of his heart and went to Badrika Ashram. By engaging in austerities, he attained the Lord's eternal abode, which had been described to him by the only friend of the conditioned souls, Lord Krishna. The word Virachandra, Visalam, refers to Badrika Ashram. After residing there, Uddhav attained the eternal abode of the Lord in the spiritual sky, Dwarka. Verse number 48. Ya etat anand samudra sambhritam gyan amritam bhagavataye bhashitam krishnena yogeshwar sevitaha anginaha sach shraddhya sevya jagat vimuchyate. Thus Lord Krishna, whose lotus feet are served by all the great masters of yoga, spoke to his devotee this transcendental knowledge, which comprises the entire ocean of spiritual ecstasy. Anyone who receives this narration with great faith and devotion is assured of liberation in the very near future. If one faithfully hears this conversation between the Lord and his devotee, which is like an ocean of bliss, he becomes a fit candidate for executing loving devotional service of the Lord. Indeed, by his association, the entire world can become engaged in the service of the Lord. By faithfully serving the devotees of the Supreme Lord, one can attain freedom from material bondage and engagement in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Last verse, verse number 49. Bhavabeyam aphantum jnana vigyan saram nigam krid upjaher bringvad ved saram amritam udita sa chapayad britye vargan purusham rishabham adhyam sangyamna nato asmihi. I offer my obeisance unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of everything, Lord Shri Krishna. He is the author of the Vedas, and just to destroy his devotees' devotee's fear of material existence, like a bee. He collected the essence of all knowledge and self-realization and then awarded it to his devotees, whom by his mercy have drunk it. And who's saying this? Shukadev ji is saying it. To conclude this chapter, Shri Shukdev Goswami offers his obeisances to the spiritual master of the whole universe, Shri Krishna. It is Krishna who churned the Vedas to extract the essence. Other philosophers have also tried to extract the essence from the Vedic literature, but without knowing the confidential purport of the Vedas, being devoid of implicit faith in the Supreme Lord, being the author of the Vedas, it is the Supreme Lord who understands their true purpose. The Supreme Lord, like a bee, collected honey from the garden of Vedic flowers and distributed it to his devotees. However, while favoring the devotees, the Lord has simultaneously cheated the non-devotee demons. For example, during the churning of ocean, the Lord took the pot of nectar after assuming the form of Mohini and then distributed it to the demigods. While tactfully deceiving the demons, let us bow down to the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna. Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without beginning and without end. As the Supreme Instructor, he removes the living entity's fear of repeated birth and death. He mercifully distributes love of himself, which is the essence of all Vedic knowledge, to all conditioned souls who are otherwise averse to his service. He is the compiler of the Vedic literature, and he distributed its essence to the swan-like Vaishnavas. It is the foremost duty of all living entities to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, giving up all varieties of religiosity. So this is the final verse of Uddhava Gita. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaye Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.